Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for another training session of your Nu Skin Ops or online prospecting system. My name is Brian McKenna. I'm one of your guys' technical support supervisors over the system. As I mentioned to some of you guys before we started the recording, we've got a pretty special session planned for you guys this morning. I'm going to be teaching you, of course, the functionality of how to put autoresponders together and how to set those autoresponders based on people meeting certain actions or criteria on both your products and your opportunity websites. And then I've also got a special guest, of course, Heather Hansen this morning joining us from our company as well. She's basically our copyright and editor for our particular company. As I said before, she helps produce a lot of the amazing written material that we have. So it'll certainly be a pleasure to have her speak to us this morning. So without, of course, taking up too much more of your guys' time this morning with any type of introductions, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into where you guys can start building your own autoresponders. And then after we look at the autoresponders and then also see how we can build our own, we're going to take a look at something that I know some of us have been on some of my webinars before and we've talked about when it comes to setting up autoresponder triggers. If somebody hits a certain action on my website, what is going to be my automated response based on what's happening? So when you first come into your Nu Skin Ops system, you can come into your prospecting tab, and this is going to give you access to your autoresponders. The autoresponders is going to house all the default system autoresponders that we provide to any user on the Nu Skin Ops system. This is to enable new distributors that come in and start using the system and be able to hit the pavement running, so to speak. That way they don't have to, of course, configure any of their own information about any of the product lines. They're hitting on all the key points. Now, you guys also do have the capability to create your own campaigns, which we kind of want to talk to you guys about this morning. But real quickly, I want to talk to you about what an autoresponder campaign is. As most of us may know, an autoresponder campaign is essentially just going to be a number of emails that are going to be sent out on a scheduling. As far as being sent out every few days, containing different information or supplemental information based on somebody's interest in either the product or the opportunity side of things. So if we just take a quick peek real quick at the ageLOC product campaign that we've built for you guys, you can see that it's already constructed to have the person's first name come directly into the system. You can build your own autoresponders and do this very same thing, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. You can see each one of the emails that we have. So the first email's right here. The subject is, are you ready to look and feel younger? And then we've got the information. We're asking them to visit, of course, our NS Products website. Second email is going to go out a few days later. It's going to tell them, hey, have you heard about the youth gene clusters? And give them information on how to, of course, reset that information with a lot of the Nu Skin products. Come down here and start talking to them about the secret to radiant, youthful looking face. As you can see, there's a number of different emails that are going to go out in this campaign. I think this number is 7 different emails, or actually 8. So 8 different emails. So this is what the actual campaigns that they're going to be receiving. Now, if we come back in here and I actually click on the campaign name itself, it's going to give me a breakdown of what that scheduling is. So I can see that after I add somebody to an autoresponder campaign, or say they hit a trigger, which we'll be talking about in just a few minutes, they're going to receive this first email on day number 1. And 4 days later, they're going to receive the second one, or on day number 5. On day number 9, or another 4 days after the second message, they're going to receive the third one, which is the secret to a radiant, youthful looking face. And as you can see, we kind of follow that same pattern throughout the rest of the campaign. So we've got 8 different emails that are going to be spaced, of course, across every 4 days they're going to receive one. And this is just to, of course, introduce them to a lot of the different products that are available through Nu Skin, based on them perhaps their visit to your product's website to check out some of the items, or to check out some of the claims that they see, going out on some of your guys' Facebook posts and things like that. So that's basically an autoresponder campaign. So I'm going to go right back into the same area, again, prospecting, down into autoresponders. And then what we're going to look at now is actually how to add a campaign. And then I'm going to turn some time over to my coworker here, and she's going to explain a little bit of tips and tricks on how to construct a great autoresponder that's going to really drive that person to want to click on the information that's in your email and what have you. So real quickly, the technical side of making an autoresponder campaign, I'll back up real quickly so you guys can see that again. You just click the Add Campaign button. It's going to bring you into, of course, the Add Campaign wizard. The first option is you're going to name the campaign. So what would you like to be able to recall it in the system later? So I'm going to name this one Test 1. I want this to, of course, be in English. I can select what market that's going to go to, or I can just leave it as default, select no countries, and then I can use it for any of those markets. Now, one of the things I do want to point out is going to be the spacing of course, the emails that you'll be sending out as a part of this campaign. The first option underneath step 2, when we actually edit and configure the message portion, is it says after adding a contact to this autoresponder, this message will be sent after. And this is essentially where you're telling the system you need to wait this many days after I add somebody to an autoresponder or they hit a trigger for this particular email to go out. So a lot of times the first message is A-OK to leave just on that first day. We'll come back and talk about this particular spot on the second message that we're going to create. Now, if you guys do have predefined email scripts that you guys have created throughout the system already, you can come through here and select those. You can use any of the predefined email scripts that we have available, or you can simply type up this entire email up from scratch if you need to as well. So in this, I'm just going to put, of course, an email subject to test 1. You put in your information in the body. And then, of course, you've got different items to add in custom data tags and add media. And this is really when I want to turn some time over to Heather so she can talk to you guys more about what's going to be the best information if you're going to write your own autoresponder. What would you put in your email subject? What would you put in your email body? What's going to entice somebody to click on the options that you've given them inside the email? So, and go ahead, Heather.
Everyone, like Brian said, I'm Heather, and I'm just going to go over really quickly how to write a good email in general, and then how to put it together in an autoresponder format. So when you're writing an email, grammatically, my best tips for you are, 1, to read it out loud, because not everybody's a writer, and sometimes when people are writing, they tend to get into the groove of having really short sentences or a lot of really run-on sentences. That's not the way we talk, obviously. So if you can just read it out loud and it sounds okay, then it probably is going to read okay in your email. Another thing you can do is have somebody read it. There's no shame in having anybody proof anything. So before you send out any email, my advice to you would just be to have somebody go over it. They might be able to catch something, a spelling error or a typo that you couldn't catch yourself. So when you're starting an email, it's best to start off on a really good note, because that first sentence is arguably the most important part of any email. You want to grab and hold your prospect's attention right from the beginning. So you'll want to do something informative, entertaining, eye-catching, something that makes them want to keep reading. My suggestions would be to quote an interesting fact or statistic. The more shocking it is, the more likely somebody is to keep reading. Obviously, you don't want to make anything up, so make sure that you can have a source for your stat or your fact. But if you can find something that shocks you, chances are it'll shock your prospects. You want to make your greeting professional and personal. A lot of people have a real issue with saying hey, so it's probably best to say, hello, Tom, or how are you, Tom, or however you want to put that. Another good way to open your email is to ask a thought-provoking question. Like, what would it take for you to be truly happy, or something that'll get your prospect to thinking. You can also share something about your personal journey with the company, like saying, a year ago I was underpaid, unhealthy, and overall pretty miserable, and then I discovered something that changed everything. If you read that, you would probably want to learn what the something was, and so you would keep reading the email. My next tip for you is to keep it really short and on topic. The chances are that your prospect only has a couple of minutes to spare reading your email. You probably understand that. When you're going through your email, you don't want to spend 15 minutes on something. So just keep it as concise as humanly possible. You'll always want to link people back to your site, because besides piquing your prospect's interest, that's the main goal of an email. The best way to do that is to add some kind of media to your emails. So you can add a PDF, a video, a presentation, anything that gets your contact interested and gets them back to your site to learn more or to contact you. That means that every single email you write needs to have a call to action. So use active language to make your prospect want to take the next step. A good way to do that is at the end of your emails to always say something like, call me to set up a time to talk about this, or visit my website for more information, or check out this video if you want to learn more. That's going to encourage them to know what to do when they're taking their next step. And always you want to end on a positive note. So keep your closing sentences uplifting, professional. It's also a good time to keep your contact information out to people. You want to make the chances of them contacting you as high as possible. And I think that we should probably have Brian go over how to put together the rest of your autoresponder, and then I'll give you my tips for linking your emails together in a campaign.
Thank you so much for that information there, Heather. I'm sure you guys found a lot of good advice and the tips and kind of how to approach a custom autoresponder, what kind of things you'd want to approach. So we're going to take basically what she kind of said, and we're not going to necessarily type anything in here, but I want to show you kind of the rest of the configuration. So as you guys were watching before we handed it over to her for some information, we're building an autoresponder right now, and we're on the first message of that autoresponder that's going to be sent the first day that we add somebody to it. So essentially, let's pretend that we've got all of our information in here. We've added a custom data tag to automatically have somebody's first name into the system. We add that. It's going to say the person's name. I can put a comma, whatever the case may be. And we can also come in and add any one of the presentations, the videos, the web page links where it pulls in somebody to specifically look at the history of Nu Skin or anti-aging trends or product innovation that Nu Skin has. And then obviously any of the PDFs, which can kind of serve as, informational sheets or, digital brochures to show people the information that you would traditionally hand them in person anyway. So essentially after you've configured just, the first portion of your guys' message, what we can do is we can tell the system to add another message. Now what that's going to do for us is you saw that little green pop-up is this told me I'm now working on message 2 of 2 of a two message total campaign so far. Again, my campaign name is still going to stay the same. It's test number 1. Language and market still going to stay the same. But as I mentioned earlier, there's one thing I want you guys to pay attention to, and that's certainly right underneath step 2 for edit the autoresponder message or to configure the message. You'll notice that the verbiage has kind of changed, and now it says after sending the previous message, meaning the message that we just sent them a couple of days or just yesterday, the system needs to wait this many days before sending this message. And obviously we're not going to build a campaign that's going to send all the information to somebody all in one fell swoop and send them all 8 messages in one day. That'd be kind of spammy. We may not get the best response from that. You don't necessarily also want to send the emails on a daily basis out to somebody. Now, if you're building an autoresponder maybe to communicate with your up or down lines, maybe you want to use that practice as maybe a training. If you're teaching people how to, necessarily market, you can, give them daily kind of autoresponders and teach your downline what to do. But if you're just developing these for, of course, marketing materials, you don't want to send them day after day. You're going to want to give yourself, of course, an opportunity to have the recipient of that first message to be able to view it, to potentially contact you instead of you sending them supplemental information, and they may have not even seen the first piece of information that you've sent them. What I would generally say your sweet spots are going to be, depending on how much information you guys show in the first email message or the previous message, is going to kind of stipulate or determine how long you maybe might want to wait. I would say your sweet spot's going to fall probably in the 3 to 5 day zone. 3 days is, I would say bare minimum. If you send somebody out a video or something of that nature, they haven't watched it in 3 days, it may be okay to, of course, send them out a supplemental email asking them, hey, I know your time's certainly valuable. Here's a different email that you guys can check out. 5 days, I would say you don't want to necessarily let it go out any further than that. Normally when we're checking, a lot of our emails, a lot of us maybe are on regular 9 to 5 jobs, which, if we get them on an email campaign on Monday, maybe we want to send them that next message before Friday or on Friday, so to speak. So that way they don't get into the weekend, they don't check that message, and then come that Monday morning, they have that next message of my campaign buried by what they received over the weekend. So, kind of use this to your advantage as far as telling the system when to send the messages that you've developed in each one of the campaigns. Again, it's going to be very, very similar for the configuration of the message. Again, using a lot of the good tips that Heather just gave us a couple of moments ago. Real simple, you're just going to start configuring the second message. What do you want to say? What kind of items do you want to link in there? Do you want to add any type of videos? Do you want to add different web page links to your second message? And then as you can see, I've got some options. I can hit previous message and go back to edit the first one, or I can come in here and put some information in this particular field and click add another message or email subject. And if I click add another message, as you can see, I'm now working on message 3 of 3. And, I can come up here and also set this, I want it to go out 5 days after it received message number 2. So, get inside here. What I would suggest is if you're not too comfortable with building an autoresponder and then immediately sending it to somebody, like Heather suggested, it doesn't hurt to have, another pair of eyes look at something. Maybe put, yourself onto the autoresponder after you build it and be the only person on it until you've got it squared away to where you're comfortable sending it to other potential prospects or customers, or send it to somebody in your family. It never hurts to, of course, share your information with somebody who's going to give you honest criticism, that you're not relying on any type of marketing. You're not hoping that person's going to use the products to change their life, or take a bite out of the opportunity to be able to enhance their lives as well. So I know that Heather had some more information for us about linking the different emails together. What are some good tips on what kind of information you'd probably want to put in the first one, and then going into your second, maybe third, and going on, or however many messages that you want to build. So I'll go ahead and turn over some time back to her, and she'll give you guys some more tips.
All right, so here are my tips for writing your campaign. If you're creating an autoresponder campaign, make sure that all of your emails follow the tips I listed earlier for you. You want to make sure that each of your emails is professional in the campaign. Like Brian talked about, you can set your emails to go out every 3 days, every 5 days. Just think about how often you want your prospect to receive that. If your emails are too far apart from each other, you run the risk of your prospect losing interest. If you space them too closely together, you can overwhelm or irritate your prospect. So Brian talked about 3 to 5 days. That is completely true. That tends to be the sweet spot, like he said. So take his advice for sure. Also, as you're writing your campaigns, put some sort of structure in the campaign as a whole. If you remember back to your elementary school writing classes, they probably taught you about introduction, body paragraph, conclusion. That's great for one single piece that you're writing, but it also is great for a whole campaign. You want an introductory email, you want some more information in the body emails, as I would call them, and then you want a solid conclusion to wrap up everything you've said in your last email. Also, I would recommend using the inverted pyramid structure. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the idea that you start with the most interesting, informative pieces of information in the beginning of your campaign, and then slowly, gradually go down to the things that are less important. That way, if somebody only has time to read your first campaign, they're going to get the impact of your message right at the beginning. So those are my tips for writing your autoresponder campaign. I also really fast wanted to go over how to write a good bio. So my main suggestion for writing a good bio is to keep it as short as possible. Like we talked about in the emails, people don't have a lot of time on the internet. Everything is in short little bites of information. They don't want to go over a lot of text. Edit it down to just a few sentences if you can. It's really great to add in something personal or attention-grabbing, because people are going to be really drawn to you if you come off as a person instead of a paragraph. If you add a quick sentence about your hobby or your interests, that is going to help them relate to you and trust you more. It's also best to write in third person. Instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Heather. I really like to do this and this and this," it's great to say, "Heather works for Sound Concept," and then go in that way. It sounds more professional. If you think about whether or not you trust, well, if you trust a product based off of an ad as compared to based off of reading a newspaper article about it, you'd probably lean towards trusting the information in the newspaper article because it's more objective, and it's kind of the same thing. If it sounds like somebody else wrote it, people are more willing to trust the information, if that makes sense. And also for credibility, it's best to avoid using too much humor in your bio. You want people to trust you. You don't want them to think that you're joking or wasting their time. And like I said before, inverted pyramid style is going to be the best way for you to get that information across. Put your most informative sentence first, and then slowly go down from there. And obviously, write for your audience. You know what your prospects want or need to hear from you in order to trust you. And I think that's everything I have, so I'm going to hand you back to Brian.
Thank you so much for that informative lesson there, Heather. We appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be able to take away some of the tips and tricks that you gave them and be able to start applying that to some of the information. And as she was talking, I navigated over to where you guys would actually go to create your own bio. So essentially, if you wanted to go into your profile tab up here in the upper right, you could go down to My Site Settings. As you first come inside the My Site settings for your Nu Skin Ops, you're going to be defaulted onto the website display. This is the information that's displayed to the visitors of your website. So if you've got, a team name, your personal name, whatever you'd like to, you can put that in, of course, the name field. Phone numbers are important. This is where you're going to put a phone number that you're going to be expecting phone calls regarding, of course, your website or the Nu Skin opportunity or products. Same thing with the email address. Just expect to receive emails, concerning, your affiliation with Nu Skin, being a distributor and what have you. The one thing I will say that is kind of helpful for website display and then also is going to kind of help change some verbiage around on your guys' websites is if you guys are, husband and wife, other couples, just maybe, brothers, sisters, family members that are kind of teaming up to take on a distributorship, you can actually change how the verbiage is used on the website. You can leave your user type as single, and it's going to use singular terms like I, mine, and me. And if we change that over to multiple users or groups, that's not going to give you any additional logins for, say, that other person to use, but it's going to change the verbiage from those I, mines, and me's into we's, us's, and ours. So it kind of helps to note for the visitor of that website that there's potentially more than one person that they're going to be dealing with. Again, right here is we just heard from Heather, writing a pretty effective bio. You can share your information here. This is where you're going to want to do it. It looks like it's a pretty small box, but you can actually fit a lot of information in here. Now, as she said, you're not necessarily going to want to write like, a document or a dissertation on, your entire life, but, give them some good key points on, how long you've been with the company, what types of items that you've found success with. What would you want to hear from somebody if you were reading their biography that gets you interested? And that's the kind of stance that I think that, the information that Heather gave us is kind of the mindset that we need to have when writing the information. She said write it for the audience, and I think that's, an important thing that we can all take away from that. Now, just to kind of show you guys real quickly, as we talked about, this is, setting up My Site Settings. This is where you can talk, about yourself in the biography area or the bio area. We looked real quickly over, of course, the autoresponders. We learned some tips and tricks on how to create, some really good, information and how to chain those together. And then what I would say the last thing I want to kind of close out this morning's training with is those email scripts, because this is also another area where you guys are able to create your own information. And this is going to take in all the advice that Heather gave us this morning and apply that directly to the email scripts as well. And the reason I say that is when you're creating an autoresponder, you can actually have the option to choose from one of your predetermined email templates or one of these email scripts. So, real quickly, let's say I wanted to add one in. It's going to be a pretty familiar screen, just like we were building an autoresponder, but this is an email script. It's only one message that we're building at a time. So you're going to put your title in there just so that way you're able to recall it up when you're inside the system next time and be like, oh, that's that script I wrote. You're also going to want to put in your email subjects, start configuring your message, use some of the tips and tricks that Heather gave us. Add in the, the custom data information that's going to help pull in the information for you, like your name, your phone number, your contact's first name. Also, don't be afraid to offer up actionable items in each one of the email scripts or autoresponders. The whole purpose to sending, of course, to the, all of our prospects, emails or even information is to get them to come visit the website. If they view that information on our website, we're giving the ability to track what they're viewing. So that way we don't have to, send them the same video 4 or 5 times. We know that they've already seen it, so I'm going to start sending them some other information. I'm going to send them information based on what they're telling me they want, or, based differently on what I've sent them in the past and they maybe have not responded to. So real quickly, as you're, again, building the email scripts, I'm just going to put in some gibberish real quick so you guys can kind of get the gist of it. If I save this as an email script, it's going to then become available as one of those predetermined email templates that we can use when we're constructing those autoresponders. And I'll show you guys that real quickly as soon as the system decides it wants to save for me. Well, it looks like the system's going to make me kind of silly this morning, but essentially, if it hurry up, what I was going to show you guys is during the course that creation of that, you have an option. There it goes. Now it's playing nice. Let's go check out our autoresponders. Hopefully it doesn't take quite that. You see? Maybe my internet connection decided to be funky for a moment. But what we're looking at here is, of course, those email campaigns that we have. You come into the Add Email Campaign. And this is what I wanted to show you is this load predefined email script option. So if we look, there's that email script that I just made with all that gibberish. So you can necessarily come inside the system, develop a whole bunch of different scripts, and then be able to recall those scripts and then just set your dates in between each one of those particular scripts to be sent out. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of come in here and customize the information that you're sending out to people. And the best advice that I could give you is, try the functionality side of it, on yourself first. Learn how to add yourself to your own autoresponders. And what I'll show you real quick is how to do that. If you go into a contacts profile page, which I don't have a contact, so we're just going to add one real quickly. Go ahead and save that information in there. Now I've got a contact. Each one of the contacts that you guys have inside your system is going to have one of these, what we call a contact profile page. On that contact profile page, basically right here in this first kind of panel, you've got a section that talks about autoresponders. Now, since we're talking about the importance of autoresponders, what I wanted to show you is I can actually choose that autoresponder. Had I created my own, it would be in this list. And this is also how you choose or switch somebody from an autoresponder. So let's say they're already received the first two messages. They're set to receive, the third message on the first tomorrow. But I'm like, no, I want to change it over to the product campaign. I can choose to start them on any message I want to, choose what date this is going to be sent. Now, the one thing I will note about the dates themselves is you will not be able to send it on today's date. If you'll notice, today's kind of like whitish or beige, kind of cream color. It doesn't help that I'm colorblind, but this one's a different color than all the rest of them, I can tell you that. But that means basically that the time for you sending out this autoresponder is already passed for April 30th. So the next available date is going to be, of course, Thursday the 1st. So basically, I would just save this information, and that's going to put that person on that autoresponder. Another way that you can look at a way to set up the autoresponders and really make them just kind of auto-deliver themselves is going to be the actual triggers for these. And you can find that through the My Profile, go into My Site Settings, and then here on My Site Settings, the second option down of what we already looked at, which is the bio area on Website Display. But now we're looking at our autoresponder triggers. And essentially what this is stating is that if somebody comes and registers on, let's say, my Nu Skin Products website that's part of my Canada market, I'm going to automatically start sending them out the ageLOC product campaign. Or again, if you've built your own autoresponder, you can choose that from this drop-down list. Same thing with the opportunity pages that have to do with Canada or Venezuela in this particular case. And then we've also got two kind of nifty triggers that deal with autoresponders, which deal with conditions being met. Those two conditions that we track is whether somebody has opened the information that you've sent them, meaning that they've watched it, or they've not watched it. So if I send out an email to somebody that contains like a video or a link back to my website, if that doesn't happen within 4 days, I'm going to send them out a presentation or an autoresponder campaign that's named "Did Not Watch My Presentation." And it's basically, start going to go into information about, hey, I know all of our time is valuable. Here's a shorter video. Just come and check it out. I know after you see this amazing information that you'll want to speak. Here's my contact information. Something like that. Same thing if they did watch the presentation, maybe down here on this other one, if they did watch it, maybe you want to thank them for looking at the information. Let them know that you're there if they've got any questions or concerns, or, hey, if you'd like to get together, I'd like to be able to, do a product demo for you, or I'd like to send you out some samples, or, whatever the case may be. So if you need any, assistance in figuring out some of the triggers, or of course, going over some of the information, this particular session has been recorded. It'll be made available on the Nu Skin America's YouTube channel later this afternoon. I just need to basically go through, compress this, and we'll get it out to you guys. So you'll be able to recall the video later this evening if you need to for the training. As well as you still need some kind of a helping hand. Don't hesitate to contact your technical support representatives. We'll be more than happy to walk you guys through a lot of these processes to make sure that you're setting up everything correctly. Or if you have any questions about, hey, I'm not too sure that I did this right, can you look at it? So again, communication is key. If you guys have problems, get in contact with us. We love to be able to help you out. Again, I want to extend a warm round of applause, even though we can't hear it, for, of course, our special guest, Heather Hansen, this morning, for helping us out and giving us a lot of information on how to build pretty effective autoresponder campaigns. Like, what kind of stuff do we want to say? Do we want to say, important stuff first, or do we want to save it for last? And again, recall this recording later and listen to some of those tips that she gave us. I think it's going to help you guys create a lot more information that people and our prospects may be biting on a lot sooner. So again, thanks so much for hanging out with us this morning for another Nu Skin Ops training. I'm going to go ahead and conclude the recording, and again, we'll be meeting in another 2 weeks with another great topic and perhaps another special guest. So thanks so much, guys, for attending.